This is a follow-up to a previous video that I did talking about all of the apps that I plan to download before my trip to China. And now that I am back from my trip, I wanna sit back and report back to you about what I think of all of the apps that I downloaded for my trip. Hi friend, my name is Sarah and welcome back to my channel. I've been back to the US for about a couple months now from my summer trip to China, and I think it's time to let you know what I thought about the trip and everything. But because there are a lot of things that I need to catch you up on, I thought in today's video I'm gonna start with reviewing all of the apps that I said I plan to download before I went to the trip. So let's get started and let's start with the first app. The first app that I said I already have was WeChat. I actually have used WeChat for years now because we usually send messages and videos and pictures and share updates with Ricky's family through WeChat. We have like a family group chat where we would send random videos and pictures about our life here in Vegas, and mostly we would get a lot of updates from Ricky's parents and brother's family. So it was really fun to keep up with them because we obviously live in Las Vegas and they're all still living back in LA. So WeChat is a great app to keep in touch and keep in contact with our family. So before I went to China, I was thinking to use the WeChat Pay feature inside WeChat so I can add my credit card numbers in there, and then when I am in China and if I need to pay for anything like restaurants, shopping, train, or whatever it may be, I could use the electronic payment method that is used widely in China. So if you don't have Chinese yuan with you, don't worry about it because I don't really think you need it as much as you think you would. Anyways, I actually not ended up using a lot of the WeChat Pay feature in China because the backup app that I have, which is Alipay, is the one that I use the most for paying for anything. So I actually would highly recommend having Alipay for sure, like 100% on your phone when you are planning to visit China for the first time. Inside Alipay, there are just so many things you can do with it. The first feature that I like is of course the Alipay feature where you can add your credit card information, it will generate a barcode for you, and that is how you would pay restaurants, taxi driver, vendors at like the street market and stuff like that. All of them have Alipay scanner, so you don't have to worry about cash. The other feature that I love about Alipay is the scan feature. So if you are going to restaurants, boba shops, coffee places and stuff, everybody has a QR code for their menu, so you can scan it, and that is the way you order and also the way you pay. So with WeChat, you can technically also scan the QR code. However, the translation option doesn't pop up every single time. But with Alipay, once you scan the menu, there's a translate button on the page and you can click it and it will translate the Chinese menu to English, and that button is always there, so you don't have to worry about having to take a screenshot and then maybe use Google Translate or Baidu Translate to translate the picture of the menu. That is actually why I prefer Alipay over WeChat. The other feature that I love about Alipay is that you can actually set up your own Metro card inside Alipay. So if you're familiar with the subway station, I guess in Asia, you can actually add a digital like Metro pass in your Apple Wallet. I have an iPhone, so that's what I have. And for some of the Chinese transit pass, you have to have either a mainland China credit card or like a mainland China bank account to reload those transit passes in your Apple Wallet. You would use the Alipay Metro or what is it called? I think public transit payment thing. You actually need to add your passport information so they can verify your identity, and once you do that, they will create a QR code and you can scan that code to pay for the train fare at any of the subway station in Beijing, for example. And that is just so much easier than having to go to the ticket machine and buy a token, and you have to basically input which station you're gonna be starting from and where you're gonna end up. So you have to exactly know where you're going, or else I don't think they will let you out of the station with the token if you, for example, get off at the wrong station. So with the Alipay QR code, it is just so much easier. It's like a metro pass on your phone. You just tap when you get in at the gate and then tap out again when you're exiting the station. And the last feature that I want to talk about is the rideshare option on Alipay. Well, at least for me, I try not to take the taxi often because the subway is pretty cheap, pretty affordable, but sometimes you do have to take a taxi if you have been walking for so long out in the sun in the summer heat of China. So we did actually try it out when we were coming home from the Palace Museum or the Forbidden City. We've been out for a whole day waiting in line in the sun. We did have an umbrella, but it was still really hot. And honestly, me and Ricky didn't really want to walk to the subway station because it is a pretty long walk. So we decided to call a rideshare. But the rideshare actually changed to a taxi. But honestly, it is so convenient. It's actually pretty safe in my opinion, because on the Alipay app, but it will show you the license plate number. So before you get into the car, whether it's a taxi or like a rideshare, you can verify the plate number, and the driver would actually need to verify you if it's really you. So they will ask for the last 2 digits of your phone number that you're connected to your Alipay. So it is completely safe, and I was actually pretty surprised that they have all of those verification. I didn't think they would, but thankfully it did. So after that experience, we actually used taxi or the rideshare app from Alipay a few more times in China. So the next couple apps that I want to talk about is the translation app, which I actually have 2 on my phone. I have the Google Translate. I've used that actually when we went to Japan in 2023. And then a lot of people are saying that the Baidu Translate app, I think that's what it was called, is actually better at translating from English to Mandarin and vice versa. And I actually decided to download that app as well before we went to China. But when we got to China, actually Ricky did most of the talking. I don't know why. And once they know that we do not speak Mandarin, even though we are Chinese, all of the workers actually have the translation app on their phone, and they would take it out themselves and they talk to it and then let us listen to it, and we would then reply to the app on their phone. I'm not really sure what kind of app they use, but I'm assuming probably Baidu Translate as well. If not, maybe the translation app inside Alipay or maybe WeChat, because I think Alipay has that too. But it has been actually pretty easy. We don't really need to use the translation app as much. Before I talk about the next app, make sure to check out my previous video, and I will link the video either up here or in the description box down below, so check it out. Before moving on to the next thing in the video, I just want to interrupt this video really quickly just to invite you to subscribe to my channel. I think 98% of you who are watching my video is not a subscriber, and I would love it for you to subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any of my future videos about Japan, about cruising, travel hacking, and so much more. I hope to see you on the next one, and now let's get back to the video. So the next app that I have is Apple Map, because I do have an iPhone, so I already have Apple Map installed in my phone. And I mentioned in that last video that people said that Apple Map is the better map to use in mainland China because Google is actually blocked in China, so Google Map is not complete. So I did use Apple Map in Beijing mostly because that is where we were on our own. We weren't really with family. And let me tell you that the map was amazing. Once you land in China, basically it opens up everything that we couldn't see if you were to look at Apple Map outside of China. So it was really easy to use. Again, it's very detailed in direction. We did use the subway many times around Beijing to go to different places that is a little bit far from our hotel and stuff. And the information on Apple Map on the subway time, the train line, the name, the direction is pretty accurate. So I would highly recommend, if you do have an iPhone, to use your Apple Map if you are trying to travel in mainland China. I did use the walking direction as well. It also is pretty accurate. We obviously didn't drive in Beijing, so I don't know if the driving direction is good, but I'm assuming it's gonna be pretty good as well. Actually, now that I think about it, I did use the driving direction probably a couple times in Beijing when we were taking a taxi, just to be sure that we are going to the correct direction. And again, they were pretty accurate from what I can recall. So Apple Map, I highly recommend to do it. The other map that I have is obviously Google Map. I did use Google Map here in Vegas, as well as when we were in Japan to look up the public transit direction. So in Hong Kong, because Google is not blocked, that is the app that we use to get direction for the subway, for the walking direction to places in Hong Kong. And when we do grab taxis in Hong Kong, we also use the driving direction just to be sure that we are going to the right direction. And I do have a couple tips for Hong Kong. I don't know if it's gonna be applicable to your trip to Hong Kong, but for us, we actually have to walk about 2 or 3 blocks to the subway station, to the nearest one. And it actually took like 5-10 minutes extra to go to places, and we find that taking the taxi in Hong Kong is actually pretty affordable. It's not going to be as cheap as if you were to take the subway, but it will be faster and you will save a lot of time. There are some traffic, especially in like the Kowloon main city center area, but if you are crossing to the Hong Kong island side, it is definitely easier with a taxi. You do pay an extra, I think 20, maybe 35 something Hong Kong dollars, because they have to take the expressway, but I think it's worth it. So if you are in Hong Kong and you find out that you have to walk a lot to get to the subway station from your hotel or from your Airbnb or apartment or whatever, take the taxi. The last app that I have is called the Octopus for Tourists app, and this is specifically for Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong, there is this kind of like IC card that is called the Octopus card. And again, you can also add it into your Apple Wallet. However, the only way you can load the card is by using a Hong Kong-based credit card or like a mainland China-based cards. Unfortunately, I do not have one, and the solution is to download the Octopus for Tourists app. So I think once you download that and you add the Octopus card in your Apple Wallet, it does link it automatically if I'm remembering it right. So you just have to use your non-Chinese or non-Hong Kong credit card inside the Octopus for Tourists app to load your Octopus card. But basically, it's kind of like the middleman between having to load the Octopus card on your phone. It is actually pretty easy. However, it's a little bit finicky with the credit cards that we use to load our Octopus card. We use Visa and MasterCard most of the time, but we can load it, for example, in the morning, and then once we try using the same card to load our card again, it will give us an error message, and it was kind of getting annoying. There's actually one time when we were trying to pay at a restaurant. We didn't have cash because we didn't take out any cash. We tried so many different credit cards that we have to load it, but the one that actually worked is the Apple credit card. For some reason, it just works seamlessly. I think maybe because Apple Card is pretty acceptable in Southeast Asia. I'm not sure why, but we finally was able to figure out the best credit card to use to load the Octopus card. So if you do have the iPhone and you have the Octopus card in your Apple Wallet, make sure to use the Apple credit card to load it, because you're gonna have less headache from trying to figure out which credit card will work to load your Octopus card. If you are planning your very first trip to China, make sure to check out one of these videos next.